This one, it has a gangster element to it. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Before the Stories Are Lost. And I'm Pat Lane. Yeah, this particular story here, I've been thinking about it for a spell. Been wanting to bring it to y'all. And like all of them that I tell you, it's the truth. Like I said, the truth is stranger than fiction, and it's much more interesting. And I've been knowing these stories just about all my life. Because the man I'm fixed to tell you about, well, he happened to be a cousin of mine on my mama's side. And she had 7 siblings, and the oldest one, my aunt, she had 2 boys. And boy, if there was ever 2 boys different, it was them 2 right there. But the one I'm going to tell you about today is my cousin Gale, and his name was Gale Van Hoy. He's been dead a spell now, some years. And if anybody could have wrote a hell of a book, it'd have been him. Put all those stories of his down on paper, I can imagine, but like he told us, he said, there's too many people out there wouldn't appreciate a book from me. And as I get into this story, you will be able to understand why. As a young child, Gale was burnt severely. I think they had him a little fort hut or something like that, a little kerosene lamp, and yeah, it got all over him, in his torso and his legs, and I guess I don't know where all. I have never seen the man without clothing, and don't know. But I know that there are stories that were told to me that as a child, he spent an enormous amount of time in a tub of penicillin water. Because y'all got to understand, this 80-some years ago. They didn't understand that shit back then. They don't know what they know now. Let's just not get into that. But anyhow, he was quite the invalid for a long period of time. You imagine, 4 or 5 years old sitting in a tub of penicillin water and you ain't got no skin on your body. Needless to say, he was tough. What finally took, because they took pinch grafts all over his body, the way I was told, and had difficulty getting that skin to grow and stuff, but his mother finally donated what had to be, holy mackerel, probably close to 12, 15 cubic inches, square inches off her thighs. They took it off the top of her thighs and got that skin to growing on his body. Well, he lived. And he thrived. Not only did he live and he thrived, as a young man, he became a professional prize fighter. Yes, sir. In the ring. But Gale fought in full-length tights and shirts, sleeve plumb to his hands. Well, I'm sure he didn't want people to see all the scars and stuff on his body. So that's the way he boxed. And he was even ranked as a lightweight in the world. During that period of time, when he was a kid and he was healing and stuff and he couldn't do a lot of things, well, he discovered bicycles. Now, I don't mean the kind you ride, I'm talking about them playing cards. You hear me? And what that man could do with a deck of cards was just freaking astounding. And that's probably one of the reasons he went down the path that he did. But one night he was in a prize fight, and he was fighting a man that was ranked way up there. And I guess apparently just getting the shit kicked out of him pretty serious like, you know. And fella come over that he had met to his corner in between rounds and said, Gail, I know an easier way to make a living. And Gail said, well, I'll come see you in the morning. He must have had enough of that shit too, you know. You take only so much whoopings, you know. But apparently they struck a friendship. And Gail put those skills of his with them bicycles to use. He became a gambler. Oh, and he hit all the big gambling spots, you know. Where people could go in there and, I mean, you know, play some serious cards, you know. And he could tell story after story about different places and different times and situations he got in. He said at one time he had a brand new vehicle. He said, I had at least $10,000 worth of diamonds on my fingers. But I did not have a dime in my pocket to put gas in that vehicle to get it over a hill and coast down to the bum house that he was staying in with a bunch of other broke-ass gamblers. He said they'd all go out to the market and they'd steal a potato or a carrot or an onion or something. They just threw it in a pot. I guess they had a full-time mulligan stew going, and that's what those people ate off of. Until one night, a fella come in there that knew him, and he gave him a little tuck, you know, some folding money. And Gail went and got in the game. And I guess he did quite well. I don't know exact figures, and you know me about telling the truth. If I knew it, I'd tell you, but I don't know what it was. But apparently he won enough money to get himself back on his feet, paid that guy back, plus he gave every bum in that house, the story I heard was $1,000. And we're talking a long time ago when $1,000 was a lot of money. But, you know, I guess he had a good heart. Well, as his gambling career, progressed, he went all over the place. But somehow or another, he finally landed him a job at a really big-time casino. And he was upstairs, buddy, where they, you know, you had to have some money to get in that damn game. These people were serious gamblers. And he was a dealer. He dealt for the house. And he rocked along and did that for a little bit. And it's the way he told me. Now, this story comes right out of his mouth. And I'm going to tell y'all, I spent a half of a lifetime trying to catch that man in a lie, and I never did. So I just have to believe it's the truth. Well, anyhow, he had a buddy. And they worked up a little deal. And they decided what they was going to do. And about that time, Gail had a woman entered his life. He got quite fond of her. She was a blonde. And her name was Teeny. Well, them two shenanigans decided they were going to break the house. And then I guess haul ass, I don't know. But the way the story went, that man came in there and got in that game, and Gail dealt him cards all night. And that man walked out of that casino with $180,000. And we're talking probably circa about 1960. Okay, that was a long time ago. Yeah, it was 60 years ago. And $180,000 60 years ago was a hell of a lot of money. I mean, a whole hell of a lot of money. And what they had planned was, he was going to get out of there with the loot, and then they was going to meet up and split the money and take off different directions. And I guess that's the way the plan went down. But I told y'all this was a little bit gangster, so let's stop for a second and talk about this for a minute. Now, we all know that gambling is pretty much lock, stock, and barrel controlled by the mob. Except, on the Indian reservations, but I wouldn't be at all surprised they didn't have their hands in that too, But it's mob control. Everybody knows that. It's not like, leaking out one of their secrets. Hell, they've made movies about it. Well, those two guys got out of there that night, met up, and split that money. And Gale gave his half of that money to his new gal, Teeny, and said, "You get the hell out of here, and I'll find you." And she left. Well, apparently those fellas that run that, casino was, of course, they was after him. They caught up with that old boy that won all that money. And they killed his ass dead. And they took the money back. And when they caught up with my cousin Gale, well, they thought they'd killed his ass too. But he didn't have no money. Because he'd sent it with Teeny, told him to get the hell out of there. That man woke up in the hospital. Police guard. Oh yeah. Because they knew those old boys were probably going to come back and try to finish that damn job. I just can't imagine that. But here he is, recuperating from damn near getting killed and stuff in the hospital. And I don't know how long it was there, but he said the moment that he thought he had the strength to do it, he snuck the hell out of that hospital. And he got the hell out of Dodge. Had to go for a piece, and it took a little bit of time, but he finally found that blonde that had his money. Funny thing is, she spent that money. She bought her a beauty shop. And my cousin ran a card game in the back of that thing for years. Well, I'm telling you, it was just right here with spitting distance from where I live. I guarantee it ain't 15 miles. But he spent the rest of his life, in and out of that house there in Dickinson, Texas. And Dickinson is just south of Houston, between Houston and Galveston. That'll help y'all. Y'all know them big places there. Yeah, and Galveston was wild in its days. You go back in that time, 40s, 50s, 60s, that place was wide open. Yeah, prostitution, gambling, any one thing you want, you could get in Galveston. Dickinson, Texas was pretty famous too. Of course, they were kind of just path-through traffic. There was a dang railroad train that ran from Houston to Galveston. And that runs right beside Highway 3 now. Well, I guess the boys in Dickinson decided, they ought to get in on some of the action, and they had them a purple house. And they say you could see it from the train station. And in that purple house, well, you could do the same thing. Prostitution, gambling, probably anything you want. They was going to get their little piece, Of course, it's not like that no more. It's been shut down and gone. And of course, they cleaned Galveston up years ago and everything too, but that's the way it was. Well, they got together and they married. I guess they enjoyed that because over their lifespan, I was told they were married and divorced 5 times. You can go figure that shit out, you know. Man, I never broke up my wife. I'm gone for good, you know. I can't imagine that, you know, but it must have just been a fight, you know, hot-headed and spur of the moment shit, but they got back together. You know, I didn't get to see him much as a kid growing up. Of course, he was busy, you know, with his stuff, because this was all happening when I was just a little runt running around, you know. But the fact of the matter is, the first job that I know that my cousin ever had, a legitimate job, I mean, not dealing cards and gambling and doing that kind of foolishness. Now, he became the business agent for the longshoremen in Freeport, Texas. You know, the guys that load the ships and stuff. Now let's go, whoa, wait a minute. We know that the unions, you know, there's a big mob connection there too, and have been organized crime, organized labor. Well, they've been tight for a long time. And even as a kid, you know, that crap was just not adding up with me. What the hell is that? Well, it's after me and my parents split the sheet, and I was going one summer with my dad to Kansas to see his mother, my grandmother. And we left Corpus and was driving north, and he told me while we was riding, he said, you know, I think we're going to go by and see your cousin Gail. And I said, okay, of course. You know, I was probably 12, maybe 13. Couldn't have been older than that. Hell, I might have been 11 or 12. It's been a long time ago. My dad was a bit of a gambler himself. And now, he didn't do it for a living and everything, but he was very well known at the country club. His nickname was Yancey Dellinger, who was a riverboat gambler, and everybody called him Yancey. And Mama said that the whole time we remembered that country club, she never saw a bill. And she figured that Dad won that money in them card games, you know, at the country club or on the golf course, because he could hit the golf ball too. Gin rummy was his game. So I guess he must have had some kind of a, you know, bond with Gail, you know, them both being kind of fond of them cards and stuff. My dad, I better turn that son of a bitch on airplane mode or it's going to screw me up right in the middle of this damn story. I know how to do that now. Okay, I got that thing down. Excuse me a second. Well, anyhow, we pulled off the road and went into Dickinson, Texas. And pulled up to Teeny's beauty shop. Now, as a kid, I'll never forget that, what I saw, because that damn thing, you know. It's not a big beauty salon. It was a little shop. I think she had 2 chairs in there, if memory serves. But out in front of that thing, partner, there was 2 stretch limos. There was a Caddy. There was Lincolns. There was a damn sports car that looked like a Jagger-Rundy and just had nothing but engine. And I was just blown away looking at them vehicles. Oh my God, look at that shit, you know. And we went in the front door, and the only person in that beauty shop was Taney, and she was cutting some old woman's hair. Of course, you know, I'm curious. I'm going, what the hell's going on? Of course, she saw us, and Oh, hello, Keith. Hey, Pat, you're growing up, little boy, and pat me on the head and everything. And Dad asked her, said, is Gail here? She said, oh, yeah, he's in the back. You know what they're doing. Go on back there. Dad said, you sure about that? She said, oh, yeah, just go through that damn swinging door. It's okay. You know, your family. Dad was a little hesitant. But we went to back to that beauty shop and opened that damn swinging dang door. And when I could see, there was 2 card tables. And there was 4 guys at each card table. And then there was some men standing up too. And there was an enormous amount of cash on them damn tables. They weren't playing penny ink poker, okay? You know, this was the real deal shit. Matter of fact, I was told later that in those games you had to have 5 large to get in the game. So, yeah, there was some cash there. And the minute we cleared that door, them men, they stopped and they're looking up, you know, and they had cigars burning, they're drinking and everything else. And my cousin just went, whoop, that's family. Everything's okay. He threw his cards down and said, deal me out. I'm going to talk to my family. Everything's good. And those some bitches just went right back to gambling. They'll come over there and talk to me and Dad, mostly to Dad. Just little stuff. How's it going and all this stuff. Where you headed? And Dad told him he was going up there to Kansas to see his mother. And we visited there a little bit. Well, they did, and I listened. And I was watching the whole damn time too, because that's some crazy shit going on. And man, that's serious stuff. That's the first time I'd ever seen big piles of money like that and people betting and shit and getting excited and stuff, you know. Anyhow, after they talked a bit, Dad said, well, we better hit the road. God almighty damn. We left and we got in that car, and I had questions. You can imagine. You know. And we drove through Houston, got up on the other side of it, somewhere in that damn piney wood forest up there. You know where I'm talking about, between Houston and Dallas, because you can't see the countryside. You can't see the forest because of the trees. You know, there's so damn many pine trees, you know. That's all I remember is just pine trees. And that's when I did it. I said, Dad, I'm a little confused. I just, you know, don't understand some things here. He said, what are you talking about, son? I said, well, Dad, everybody knows the stories about Gail dealing them cards to that guy and getting away with it. And Daddy, that's the mob, you know? And I said, now he's got that job down there in Freeport as the business agent for the unions. And Dad, that's the mob too. And I don't understand how man, my dad, he was driving. He kind of like, see, he was driving along, you know. He gave me that kind of look. And then he said, son, obviously, your cousin paid his dues. And that's the last time I ever want to hear you speak of it. By God, I never asked my dad another thing about that as long as I lived. Well, as long as he lived. I don't know what he did. I ain't got a damn clue. But as far as that union went, well, he just kept going up. Another position, another position. It was long in that time when we started our family reunions, because my mother's parents had both passed, and all of us were such a close-knit bunch. We just thought it'd be a great idea if we could all get together, you know, pick a weekend, and we usually started doing it on Thanksgiving. And of course we got families spread out across the country. And every year that reunion and move around to another sibling's home, and everybody come. Oh, we had a hell of a good time. There was 18 of us cousins from my mother's side of the family. There was 6 girls and 1 boy, and there was 18 children. We've lost some of them. I think the number's 14 now. Now, I'm not going to talk about that. But while we had all those reunions, and Gail and Teeny, they showed every one of them. Of course, they wasn't like the rest of us. You know, they didn't drive to wherever it was. Although they're going to fly. And they're going to make an appearance, and they're going to be covered in diamonds and her fancy necklaces and all her diamonds and stuff, you know, and they put on quite a show for everybody. But because of his political position, it eventually was the undoing of our family reunions. Somehow or another, you know, I guess I could talk about that for hours, and I'm just not going to. But all my relatives outside of Texas, well, they're all Democrats. They all vote Democrat. And always have. They said because Grandpa voted that way. Well, guys, if you know a little bit about history, there used to be a thing called the Southern Democrats, you know, and they Blue Dog Democrats, and they were the most conservative sumbitches in Washington. No, that ain't so no more. Now, they got a damn another one they call it Blue Dog, but it started like 2000 something. Guess what? It's bullshit. It ain't the same as those guys were then. But anyway, that whole family, they all vote Democrat, and we have a tendency to vote Republican because we don't have any other choice, especially in Texas. Yeah, they got, maybe it's like that in other states too. If an independent wants to run for governor of Texas, he cannot announce, he cannot do anything until after both the Democrat and Republican primaries. Oh, and then you got to get about 200 and some freaking thousand people to sign a damn thing, and then they might consider putting you on the ballot. You see, they got that thing sewed up. And I don't think we'll ever have an independent governor in the state of Texas, although that's exactly what we need. Get rid of both those sumbitches, because there ain't neither one of them worth a bullet to blow them to hell. Because they're lying bastards, you know. And y'all know that. They've been lying to us forever about everything. But it is what it is, and don't seem like none of us can change none of it. That's why I protest silently. But y'all kind of understand. They ought to have two parties. Yeah, parties. And people tell the truth, and then them lying bastards. Of course, they're going to outnumber us. Because if you notice, people will tell a lie about the simplest shit nowadays, because that's what they think you want to hear. Now, is that crazy? You're damn right it's crazy. And it ain't this guy here. I'm not like that. And you know good and well, if you followed me and listened to my YouTubes, I'm going to tell you the truth. Because I can remember that shit. It's in my eyes that are hard to remember. Well, that wasn't the greatest vacation I had with Daddy and stuff, but like I said, I remember those reunions, and boy, we had a lot of fun. Now, as all of us cousins married, and we started having kids and stuff, and then going to the reunion, it just weren't the same. It was for us original cousins. And why? Well, we got in memories. You know, we remember Grandma and Grandpa, all of us. And of course, our kids don't. And they were two great people. They certainly were. And a lot of reasons we're all the way we are today. Because I tell you what, you can say what you want, but we're a product of our environment that we're brought up in. And that pretty much adjudicates the way you're going to end up. Get my notes out, make sure I didn't mention nothing. Oh, yeah. As I said, this cousin of mine, he went up the ladder. And at one time, his position, whatever it was, but he was basically like the regional frickin' director of AFL-CIO. And that was from Miami to Brownsville, the entire Gulf Coast. If they were union, it went across his desk. With the exception, of course, the Teamsters. And for y'all who don't know what the Teamsters are, that's the truckers. And I know y'all probably heard that name, you know. They still looking for Jimmy Hoffa, you know. They didn't find him, you know. But he been dead for a long time. But he was the man that built that Teamsters union, and he owned it. And lock, stock, and barrel. And he let everybody know it too. And I had asked Gale about that before. He said, oh yeah, I knew him. I've been in meetings with him. Damn, you know. Well, yeah, his wife passed first. And they never had any children. Of course, his brother's gone too, and his mother was gone. And he only lived, hell, he wasn't 15 miles from me. And I'd go visit him from time to time. You know, just, I felt bad him being there by himself, but he had lots of friends. I shouldn't have been concerned about that. Besides, every time I'd show up to his house and just try to shoot and jaw with him, it wasn't long he wanted to talk politics, and he'd piss me off. And I'd just say, excuse myself, hey Gail, I'll see you next time I got to go, you know. I'd make excuse, get the shit out of there, because I don't want to listen to that crap. I'm just not real fond of it. I've been there a couple times, had some cousins from Oklahoma show up down there, and I got to see them too. That was neat, because, you know, we were close as kids, but we're as distant as hell now, and it's all because of that shit, you know, that I don't talk about. And it's sad, but it's facts of life. But I remember one day, I had watched a damn show on Netflix, and it was about Jimmy Hoffa. It was, whoa, it was good, too. And I was wondering how much of it was true, and I did me a little research and stuff, and hell, the Red Fox Inn, yeah, it's all there. They met there. And for some reason, I just decided to go see my cousin Gale. He said that he'd been in a meeting with him before. I thought maybe I'd get a little further information, because that show on Netflix, it just kind of left you hanging, you know. That's why people still digging up, you know, football fields trying to find Jimmy Hoffa's body and stuff, you know, and looking in the deep sea ocean for tin cans that they put him in and shit, but they ain't gonna find him. Well, I went over to Gale's house, knocked on the door, he come to the door, so hey, Pat. Come in there, sat down in his den. He had something on television. And I was talking to him, I said, Gale, I said, I just watched a program, and it was about old Jimmy Hoffa. He kind of perked up and said, well, what did it say? And I said, well, you know, I mean, I got pretty much figured out that they were in Detroit, you know, and they met there at that Red Fox Inn, and then they was going to a residential home. But they just didn't know nothing after that. He chuckled. He said, and they won't. I said, you know more about this shit than you're telling me, don't you? He goes, yeah, I know it all. I said, you know what happened to Jimmy Hoffa? He said, oh, hell yes. And they can quit looking because they're not going to find him. I said, damn, I'll be the only person on earth that knows that. He said, no, I'm not. There's a lot of people know. They don't talk. Same reason he don't write no damn book. You see what I'm saying? Well, as he proceeded to tell me, he had a partner. And I'm not going to call the man's name out, but I can remember it because I got a good memory. But I'll tell you who and where he was from. And this old boy was from Boston. And he was a tall, red-headed Irishman. And he was an assassin. Yeah. He killed people for the mob. Mostly Whitey Bulger. But I think he hired out to wherever the money was. My cousin indicated he'd kill people for Jimmy Hoffa. And they were big buddies. Well, anyhow, they were in the Red Fox Inn at that meeting. And then they were supposed to go to this residential house in Detroit. And there was to be a car in the driveway. Well, that was, they're safe. He knew that everything's set up. That's exactly what they told me. It's okay. So they left there. And of course, Jimmy and his buddy was in the back seat and driving. They had a muscle and then his godson. And when they pulled up to that house, there was that car in that driveway. Just like they said it was going to be. And Jimmy just jumped out of the car. He leaned over there to his godson. He said, okay, he said, this meeting's going to take about an hour and a half, 2 hours. You come back 2 hours and pick us up. We'll get the hell out of here. But y'all go on. And his buddy got out of the car and Jimmy went tripping up to the front door. Well, they drove off. Jimmy knocks on the door. I open the door and there's two guys standing there. Hoffa didn't have a damn clue who they were. But see, he didn't have a lot of time to think about it. Because about that time, his buddy, that big Irishman, well, he put a bullet through the back of his head and killed him graveyard dead right there on a spot. Because you see, this was all set up. Those two guys were the cleanup crew. And that car in the driveway, well, that was for the shooter to get the hell out of there. And that's what he did. He went straight to that car and took off. Left Jimmy laying there, half in the house, half out. And the cleanup crew went to work. That's when I asked, I said, what the hell did they do with him? He chuckled again and said, well, and I'm going to be polite about it. He wasn't, but they took him to a funeral parlor on the outskirts of Detroit that happened to be owned and operated by a man that had serious more melatonin in his skin than us. Okay, he was of African descent. And they threw Jimmy Hoffa in the damn oven. He was still limp. And they burned his ass to ashes. Gathered them ashes up, and their instructions were to distribute those ashes on the streets of Detroit while they're driving, rather quickly. Out the window. So like I said, they can quit digging up football fields. We know what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. Later on in life, that cousin of mine, towards the end, he was just, I guess you call him a lobbyist. He was either in Austin or in Washington, D.C., with them people, trying to figure out some way to make a lot of money, usually from us taxpayers. Because that's what they do up there. They don't really govern us. It's just all an illusion for us to make us think that we are citizens, and we get to vote, and we get to do all this shit, and we get to choose, but we don't. And it's just all bullshit. I'm convinced of it. But that cousin of mine, he's a very, very famous man. And I'm telling you right now, you can Google him. Oh, and he'll jump right up. Of course, what comes up now, at first, is his obituary notice. And I went to that service. I even spoke. Because he was my cousin. Didn't have much family there. And we were fraternal brothers, too. So I figured I'd take that opportunity to get up there and speak to those people a little bit, and I did. But if you Google that man, there ain't going to be nothing about his gambling. There ain't going to be nothing about his union work, And again, say what you want, but it's all controlled by the damn mob. Both of them, lock, stock, and barrel. But what you'll find if you Google him is that first career he had as a prize fighter, well, he became a prize fight judge. And buddy, he judged some big fights. And apparently there's a lot of folks that's written a bunch of stuff that they didn't appreciate much the way he ruled on those fights. And there's a litany of stuff in there accusing him of fixing fights. Well, if you look at his background, it all just kind of played together, Because we know that they're deeply involved in that sport too, and have been for a long, long time. And gambling is gambling, period. Well, I know you probably think that, I'm shitting you, but I'm not. And that was my cousin Gale. He'd been gone a long time. We don't have family reunions. Well, they have them, but we don't go. Because he done putrefied a bunch of them up there where feel like they got to carry the reign now because he's not there to do it, And so we just let them go and be the way they are, and we stay the way we are down here. And it's kind of sad, but just the way it is, Everybody's got problems nowadays. Excuse me. I'm telling y'all, there's something to this shit. Push the button, let it go bloop. Yeah, there's something to it. Been on it about a month. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy this little story about my cousin. If you want to Google him, I ain't saying his name again. You have to go back and listen to some bitch again, Or you can get his name, because I said it once. I know good and well I did. If you want to just do a little fact checking on me. But like I've always promised, I said, you come to this channel, I got a story to tell you. I'm going to tell you a story, but it's going to be true. And I think y'all appreciate that. So you be sure and like and subscribe. I hate that shit. They always say that stuff, We get numbers up a little bit, and I got to start putting more of these out. But I got me a new gadget right now that I'm staring at. And I hope this turns out good for you. Because if it is, then I can do this stuff real easy. And then get somebody to put it up for me, because I don't know, come here from Sikkim about that stuff. But I do enjoy telling stories. Because like I said, that's what I am, I'm an ex-outlaw hunter turned storyteller. Sure as hell can't outlaw hunt no more. If you did, you're stupid and shit, because they'll catch you. and they'll take everything you got from you. It weren't like it was when I was young man. But I figure people enjoy that, especially in this world nowadays. It's so damn screwed up. You know, they'd like to hear some normalcy, you know? What was it like 50 years ago before everybody went crazy as shit? That's why I bought that shirt. Y'all love that shirt? I like that shirt. I'll wear it in public too. I don't give a shit. But anyhow, like and subscribe. Order a book from a website. You'll enjoy them stories. And I guarantee you, I'm not going to sit there and tell these stories. That's why I put them in a damn book. If you can't read, download the audio book. It's my voice. And I'll read it to you. So, until next time, so I know y'all like my knife, we'll do her again.